As we can see, the car begins to spin the tires and immediately takes a right-hand turn. The inertia in the huge slicks becomes impossible to control. Perhaps bracing for impact, you can actually see the throttle blades open just before the devastating crash takes place. This car, welded together in his home garage, powered by an engine his brother built in his home garage, is far more than just a soulless machine for Alice Milutinovich. It is the culmination of a life in the sport of drag racing. In this instance, Bobby's car breaks traction and the engine RPM shoots to the moon. When this situation occurs, various systems in the engine like the valve train, lower-end parts like connecting rods, and even the ignition system can be thrown into mechanical chaos. In a nitro car, that chaos usually results in a spark making it to the intake manifold, which is full of air and fuel, and the result is massive flaming destruction. Well, the backfire at Worldwide Technology Raceway was... Before it all went very wrong, Bobby Bodie was on his way to his first career Nitro Funny Car win. As you can see here, the car was running with a misfiring cylinder, which caused the whole scene to come to grief. As the concussion from the explosion broke the body, the intense pressure applied by the rushing wind tore the remains of that carbon fiber shell straight off the chassis. The violence of the explosion was enough to launch the entire car off the ground at speed. Bobby earned respect from his fellow racers by never leaving his lane, despite the hellacious situation sprung upon him. Bobby's passionate response to the first traumatic moment in his career earned him a new helmet from Tony Stewart and a massive new fan base of people who appreciated the raw adrenaline displayed by young fires in his long funny car career. Airplanes in for Blake Alexander, and a big fire and explosion down there for Terry Head. A huge big fire, that car went to the left at 240 miles an hour. And as was being displayed, you can see the windshield has been ruptured at multiple points. And they're going to make a contest out of it. A huge explosion for Brown as it will be 374.3. Sean Langdon advances on. Within the first 60 feet, it was Sean Langdon just out-accelerating Antron. You can see the slightest advantage for Sean as these cars approach the 8th mile. As we see here, Antron's explosion allowed Langdon to rocket by for the round win. A huge engine failure, it appears, for Erica. The smoke funneling out of the back of the car. Stanfield drives by. As the massive cloud of smoke began to exit from the rear of the car, we could see the entire cockpit filling up as well. Ever the competitor, Erica kept her foot down in an effort to beat the faltering Stanfield to the finish. Stanfield got his problem solved as Erica reached a blinding and choking crescendo inside her Camaro. After stopping the car safely and exiting under her own power, the NHRA safety... The car pushed out of the groove past the 8th mile, rotated when one tire had more traction than the other, and center punched the wall with a fearsome impact.
I don't know, because the force keeps spinning around the 8th mile, and
Leah's got problems in a huge fireball. With Laughlin's car smoking the tires early, Pruitt suffered her problems deeper into the run. Pedaling multiple times and failing to regain traction, the engine was being oversped and overfueled. With multiple cylinders pumping raw fuel, it was a matter of nanoseconds before the whole engine detonated like it had been filled with TNT, vaporizing a carbon fiber injector hat and everything else. Massive explosion and John Force's car pitches the body off it. On this run against eventual event winner Cruz Pedregon, Force's car was running fine until it passed the 330-foot block, and the engine let go with enough fury to launch the whole Camaro body skyward. His decades of experience allowed John to stop seeing lead solid into the car. His season over. Good news is John Force is out of the car. Sportsman racer Kurt Harshfeld suffered the nightmare of every racer that uses nitrous oxide as a power adder, a manifold explosion. Harshfield stepped on the gas and the entire intake manifold full of fuel and nitrous exploded, sending his hood scoop into low Earth orbit, the safety safari into immediate action, and his racing program into a flaming shambles. He walked away.
Tire smoke and a massive explosion and another explosion. Both top fuel engines decimated.
As this was an elimination run on Sunday, Coletta was trying to do whatever he could to get his wounded top fueler to the finish line first. The multiple misfiring cylinders led to what might have been the most violent eruption of the season. Tony Schumacher blew his car up as well. The flaming nitro destruction wasn't over yet.
And they're not going to waste it. Whoa! JR's pedals, the car's on fire!
Despite the engine's destruction, the courageous Todd still had the throttle pedal down in an attempt to win the round. All of these moments paled in comparison to the most horrendous Don and Brainerd. As we can see, Gordon was fighting the car the entire run. He lifted and hit the throttle one more time at the finish line, and that sent his Beta Motorcycles Camaro hurtling across the drag strip and into the wall at the exact location of the driver's roll cage area. His Johnny Lindbergh-built car absorbed the impact in amazingly robust fashion, and he skidded to a stop upside down. Exiting the car under his own power and immediately into the arms of his family, it seemed his season and championship hunt were over. As it turns out, neither of those assumptions proved to be true. No one in drag racing could recall a time when two funny cars got this close together and didn't touch. A catastrophe was narrowly avoided, and Ron Capps would go on to win a third championship in the class. For Dale Greasy, the white knuckle rides weren't over yet. Suffering a massive explosion in his Napa Toyota Supra, he managed to control his flaming wreck of a car, and his team managed to have him back in fighting shape for the next round.
Well, it was an impressive run up until we saw the explosion, but that is the quickest run in the left lane.
It was the first time anyone had suffered this large an engine failure in the new Supra, and the body held up very well. So did his team. They not only got Ron back on the track, he would later that day win the race, and do so by making the only 3-second pass of eliminations. That's the type of tenacity that makes you a 3-time NHRA champion. After what seemed to be a routine early shutoff run, Wilkerson found himself fully engulfed in fire, and after exiting his car, he knew immediately that they'd have to pull out their backup Mustang.
Now this is going to do a lot of damage to the body, but the concern is getting Tim Wilkerson out of the car.
Tim, I know.
As we watch this again in super slow motion, we can see the smoke begin to pour off the back of the engine just before that vapor is ignited, and Brittany is trying to control a sliding, burning top fuel dragster. The blades on the injector tell us she was off the throttle immediately.
We're going to see a lot of smoke, a lot of fire. This is what this team has been fighting all weekend. You can see the perplexed look from the tuner when we showed him on the starting line. You know, I'm looking at the replay on the screen. Professionalism.
And these samples from up and down the sport of drag racing ranks is why this is the most intense form of automotive competition on the planet.
I need an ambulance. I need a stop in ambulance. Come on down.
As we can see, Force's car had misfiring cylinders. One on the left bank shut off first, veering his car into J.R. Todd's lane. Unable to get his car back to the right again, John Force began to pass J.R. Todd when his header caught on the side of the DHL Supra. From there on, the ultra-strong parachute tethers ensnare Todd, leaving him a helpless passenger as Force's Camaro smashes the wall head-on.
Thought it was okay, and then all of a sudden, boy, it struck the tires, and it made a hard left on me.
Nowadays, the way we run these things is as soon as it's 10 tires, you gotta get off the throttle.
that's good for yesterday. A lot of work that we have to get done before Las Vegas.
Todd's immense display of skill under truly hellacious conditions was a study in how a professional drag racer handles pressure in instantaneously nightmarish circumstances. Matt Hagan's problems in Charlotte weren't about the go. They were about the whoa. John Headley in the alcohol funny car category went on a very bad ride of his own against Bob Lagash. After crossing the finish line, it appears the drive line or rear axle of Headley's car locks up, sending him straight across the track, across the nose of Lagash's car into the concrete wall. The impact mangled the chassis and dislodged the body. It was a disappointing way for underdog racer Headley to score a round win over the favorite Lagash, who had issues of his own. Those issues prevented a two-car calamity.
The two swiftly leaving drivers pilot their routines to the top end of the racetrack, and it's Antron Brown. 372.5 by 8/10,000ths of a second. It's a whole shot. Everybody's green here. In fact, Caps was out first by a little. Caps' car the outside of the groove. It's forced by 8/10,000ths of a second. Double 09. Anderson's not bad with a 30. KB versus Elite. The piston pumping engines. It will be Enders. On a whole shot, 653.6 beats a brutal 651.5. And Angie might have just made one. She gave Steve Johnson 200s. The Denso onboard camera looks down the drag strip, and it's Johnson on a whole shot. A 200s whole shot, it translated directly. 6/10,000ths at the stripe. Cameron Caruso dials up an 0-11 reaction time on Greg Anderson. He's trying to make up the gap, and at the finish line, it's Cameron Caruso on a whole shot. 6:6:07, 208 miles an hour. It might sound like it's bogged a little bit, but the 60-foot number wasn't that far off. That's a pretty good drag race down at the finish line. And how about a 697 beats a 692? Ryan Ayler wins it by less than 1/1000th of a second. A great side-by-side drag race, and the win line goes from Langdon by 5/10,000ths of a second. Hornow had a 007 reaction time. You got enough motorcycle? Oh no, by half a thou. 695 Mark Ingerson. You're also taking the tire off the ground as far as contact path. Reaction time, 2/1000ths of a second. How about this? 1/10,000th of a second. Eddie Krawick wins it. Harrigan is better by 6/1000ths of a second. At the 8th mile, Coughlin's still leading at 1,000 feet. It's a draw. It's Coughlin by 1/10,000th of a second. What an amazing race. As we watch this run
again, we can see the situation unfold as so many pro-mod crashes do. Wright's car manages to push to the outside of the lane, and despite chopping the throttle at the 8th mile, the unfortunate turn of events couldn't be stopped. As soon as the car begins to yaw sideways, the air forms a cushion underneath, causing the car to roll onto its roof, nose into the right-hand wall, and then skid to a stop on its roof. There's a final burst of flames as the front-mounted tank of methanol pops in dramatic fashion. Metal helping drivers. Alcohol funny car racer Chris Zagoda suffered what might be the worst fire in this class the sport has seen in years. Watch. Coloration of the flames indicates an oil fire. Zagoda's car likely threw the connecting rod through the block, the hot oil hit the headers, and his car, sponsored by his own fire prevention company, was left scorched. In Charlotte, it was Massachusetts-based alcohol funny car racer Fred Tigges' turn to beat the fire monster. Like Zagoda, it seems an engine failure started this calamity. Tigges was trapped in every funny car racer's nightmare, a speeding car that was also sliding in a wake of its own flaming oil. Any braking application shot him sideways. He did a fine job of getting the car stopped, hauling himself out, and as we can see, the safety safari took it from there. Three words no drag racer ever wants to hear: wheelie bar failure. This is what happened to Foster the second she hit the gas. With nothing to control the car's rise, the machine launched itself into a near vertical position with enough forward motion that the body caught air and lifted all four wheels off the ground before it became dislodged and flew off. The landing in an unsuspended car is very, very rough. Sportsman motorcycle racer Jason Durnock, an accomplished rider who raced his way to Las Vegas, started his run with a perfect light and ended it in this furious tumble. It was fortunate that he and the motorcycle both separated and made no additional contact after he came off of it. Durnock was taken to a local hospital for observation after this unfortunate scene unfolded. Proof once again that even the best, most elite riders and drivers can find themselves in trouble, and Jason was far from the only one in Las Vegas. Talented supergas racer Marco Perry-Valaris would be next. As one of the best sportsman racers in the country, Perry-Valaris is seemingly always in control of his car. The telltale smoke around the finish line may indicate an engine expiry. His beautiful Camaro Roadster, the car he had won the Winter Nationals in, was destroyed. Upside down and on fire, Marco climbed out under his own power. The competition in 2023 was incredible. The will to win, the need to push equipment, and the unforgiving nature of any mistake made when the engine is powered by nitromethane leads to some spectacular footage and even more spectacular mechanical disasters. Even the most experienced and successful teams found themselves with shattered engines, busted blocks, and superchargers that were more suited for duties as a flower pot by the end of race weekends. The bad news for the teams? It'll only get harder. The good news for the fans? It'll only get more wild to watch. We'll be right back with NHRA They Walked Away 2023. Need to get back in a 330 mile per hour car. The job he does to control his dragster in the face of disaster reminded us why he's always been considered one of the best top fuel pilots ever. But it's what he did after that, on a Monday morning to finish the rain-delayed race that made everybody believe that this just might have been Doug's year.
Obviously glad we're all on base and race tomorrow.
You can see the odd flame pattern out of one side of the engine. Post-explosion, it was discovered that an issue in the oiling system had starved that side of the motor and caused this supernova-like failure upon launch. Under her, she's able to let go and thankfully separate from it, sliding off the back and onto the pavement. The fact that she was in the middle of the drag strip meant that there was no danger of her striking one of the walls, which was fortuitous in this bad situation. Unfortunately, during the process of rolling on the pavement, Angie suffered injuries to her feet and arm that seemed to doom the rest of her season with 3 races remaining. Incredibly, this was not the case. Beyond even the most hopeful projections, Smith, who maintains a very stringent workout regimen, was able to first climb back on her motorcycle in Las Vegas. Following that, she finished the season at the NHRA Finals in Pomona. Only weeks before, she'd been in walking boots and effectively immobilized. By qualifying her motorcycle at these 2 races, she maintained a top 10 points position and showed the world just how dedicated she is to the sport of drag racing. Like Angie Smith's incident in St. Louis, Klotz's problems began relatively deep in the shutdown area. Unlike Smith, Klotz was not lucky enough to stay in the center of the drag strip. The truly horrifying part of this whole sequence is when she travels behind the motorcycle, which then strikes the wall and ricochets back to impact her while she's sliding. Klotz was immediately tended to by the safety safari and was taken to a local medical facility for observation.
Hang on, crash, guys.
The limited field of vision afforded funny car racers is illustrated here. When Creasy entered the lane of Dave Richards, Richards couldn't see him until it was far too late to avoid him. Creasy's slowing car was pummeled by Richards' Ford, which had absolutely no hope of missing the Dodge.
That's scary. That's very good. They need to be more quick on it. I was going through the walls, man. They jumped right up. And then bang, and, I'm okay. So I told everyone,
With multiple misfiring cylinders on either side of the engine, Laughlin had the throttle wide open on a time bomb. The fuse ran out at the exact moment he crossed the finish line. The engine backfired, leveling the supercharger and causing the body, which is tethered to the chassis, to pitch up in the middle.
Left lane pop down there, left lane pop.
John, that one was pretty violent. How did you experience it?
well, we got the win. That's what really matters. J.R. Toddy stuff and get around these kids. That's how I find my energy. That's how I find my fight.
As we saw earlier in this show with Mason Wright, when these cars get out of the groove, they will give up enough traction on one side that the lock rear end rotates the car, and from that point on, the driver is a passenger. Jägerpont got the parachutes out quickly, which likely helped keep the car from rolling over, but it still suffered 2 incredibly punishing impacts on its front end. We can see Jägerpont continuing to fight for control of the car as it heads for the second impact. Unfortunately, the level of damage the car received in the first wall contact greatly reduced the efficacy of the steering, and the second smash was inevitable. Once again, we see the same root cause of the crash as we witnessed among others in Promont. Leaving the groove means losing control. traction, the tires went up in smoke, the engine oversped, and all that was left was a bunch of busted carbon fiber and frustration. The root cause of this monstrous explosion is the drown-out cylinder you can see releasing raw fuel. With Hyde on a pretty stout run early, the downtrack cylinder drop caught everyone by surprise. We're guessing the fire in the cockpit also caught Spencer by surprise as well. This is incredible footage. Each year when we take this look back, we're all reminded that the incredible power and fury of